She has coached leaders at top organizations like CT, LVMH, and MIT RD. A successful entrepreneur and best-selling author, she scaled GLS inclusive to seven figures and contributed to seven AC's growth before its acquisition by Emerson Electric. She holds a PhD from Boston University and brings a unique blend of psychological insight and leadership strategy to her work. Currently, she serves on the ICF NJ board, leading DEIB initiatives and hosting global chapter leader calls. That was truly an inspiring bio, Dr. Mainvi, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's a
Are you
pleasure to be
sharing a
here.
screen from your end or?
There we go.
Yes.
Wonderful. So it's my pleasure to present to you today leadership secrets for living an adaptive work life. So my first question to the 132 people who are out there, and thank you for joining us, is how many people, by the show of hands, have a balanced work life? Anybody? That's exactly the point. Now, show me hands whose life is really not so work-life balanced, and I'll raise my hand, because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And that work lives. And I'm going to be sharing with you I'm not sure why it's stuck.
Dr. Mainvi? Hello.
Yeah, here we
Can
go.
you please check your internet connection?
Yep, my internet connection is perfect. So the challenge of work-life balance is without question one of the most significant challenges faced in modern life, and none other than Stephen Covey himself has said that. And why do we think that's the case? We think that's the case, and I'll share that's true for me too, because it's impossible to have balance. It's really a myth. And I'll share with you my own personal story 30 years ago when I started balance and looking into the research around work-life balance. My husband had sent me he walked in the door sending me a beautiful bouquet of roses. And I looked at him and I took those roses and they smelled so good. And they were red roses. And I took them and I walked from the living room to the kitchen and I dumped them in the garbage. And I smushed them in the garbage can. You know why? Because I was afraid I would take them out again because they were so beautiful. And I went back to him and I was half in tears and I said, I don't want your roses. I want your, what do you think I was asking for? What do you think I was asking for? Write to me in the chat. What do you think I was asking for? Love. What else? Time. What else? Attention. All those things. What I simply wanted was his help. I was 27 years old, had 5 kids under the age of 7, and I, like a crazy person, decided that I was going back for my master's. And he just had said to me, well, Mindy, don't you want to think about that? Maybe go part-time. And I thought that was the least supportive thing he could have said to me. And from there, from that conversation, those roses that I threw away, we decided that we needed to change the way we were balancing our work life. We had a traditional arrangement the way it was so many years ago, 30 years ago, where it was I had the primary responsibilities and he was a very good husband and helped when he could. And instead, we changed that to what I would call today an adaptive work life, where it wasn't 50-50, but it was very much a dynamic kind of changing or equitable kind of work life, where I had primary responsibilities for some things and he had primary responsibilities for some things. And from then on, I did go to school. I started to go. I went and I finished in 2 years, got my clinical degree. From then went on for my PhD and continued my research and work on work-life balance. Until today, working on leadership as an executive coach after so many years, realized that adaptive leadership is very much what is like the adaptive work life. And you're the first big audience that I'm talking to about this. I've written about this. And what I want to talk to you today about is what is adaptive leadership, why we're doing adaptive leadership, and the evidence behind that. And then from adaptive leadership to go straight to why are we doing adaptive work life and what is adaptive work life. So from there, what I'd like to take you through to is, here we go. Okay, this is where I'm gonna have to ask my technical guys for a little bit help in why my slides are not showing up where they were before.
Is Dr. Mindley, is there any issue?
Yes, there is an issue in that my slides had not shown up.
Yeah, now it's
And
working. Yeah, yes,
well, I put in another set, and now the question is, are they showing up? And what's happening here?
yes, your screen is visible.
And it's, I've got are not showing up. And I'm not sure why. So if someone can help.
Is Dr. Mindy?
Lights back up there, because try to go to the screen where the presentation is shared and click on that screen. No?
Dr. Mindy, please try to reshare again.
So thank you, guys. I need that love right now because I think I'm going out of my mind. All right, now I'm in.
Is Dr. Mindy, what is the issue?
The issue is that I don't see my slides, and I can talk without my slides, and I may have to do that because I don't see them.
Yes, please proceed.
I'm sorry?
Yes, please proceed without your presentation. Or
What?
can we share from our end?
Can we share another set of slides? I can share another set of slides. Here's a set of slides. Here we go.
Dr.
Okay.
Mindy is
Yeah.
yeah.
Here's the set of slides.
Yes.
And
Yes.
can everyone see this?
Yeah. Please proceed.
Okay. So I must share with you that this is my biggest fear, that something technological is going to mess everything up. And guess what? It actually happened, and I lived through it. So
Yeah, no issue. Completely
yeah. So thank you, everybody, for all of your love and your patience, and for most people still hanging on. So the question of work-life balance is such a struggle for all of us. And I must tell you that 30 years ago, when I did the research on work-life balance, particularly for folks in the technical realm, which is so funny, it wasn't an issue even just for women. It was an issue for men as well. And today it's even more of an issue for men. So if there are men in our audience today, though I imagine it is primarily women, I want you to know that we do recognize that it is not just an issue for women, that men today are struggling with work-life balance too. And particularly in the Gen Z generation, what we're finding is that it is so amazing because everyone is so stressed out, our men and our women in the organization, and because of the economy is so bad, that what we are finding, that the statistics, if you look at them, are horrifying. 93% of workers will really say that they'd rather go to a company with less money, okay? That pay isn't as important because they're so stressed out that 50% of those people would rather have less money and have work-life balance. And is that true for people? let me know. Uh, is that really true? Would you go somewhere that you knew you'd have work-life balance? Um, Write in the chat, put a 1, or write your comments in the chat, because I must share with you that my uh, daughter uh, is really same kind of a thing. She would rather have the kind of a job that would just look at balance rather than that. Well, what we think of today when we kind of look at work-life balance and why it's a myth and why it keeps us stuck, to answer that question, and the key principles of teaching students is that in adaptive leadership, what we're talking about, and we'll go through this in just a minute, is the key principles of flexibility and innovation and unlearning, and all those things apply also to work life. And what I hope is that we will be inspired and also empowered to challenge the status quo. In a few minutes, we'll go over those 7 secrets or principles of adaptive leadership that I have then applied to work life. So instead of balance, which we're always thinking of, you do this amount, I do this amount, and we kind of get stuck in that instead, what we think of it is a very dynamic kind of a principle. Now, when we think about how chronically stressed out, do you know that less than 25% of people think that our leaders care for us? Now, does that resonate with people? That in the workforce, we think that only, and even less than 25%. And from the executives that I coach, very much they worry that their people feel that way. And they try to do things that people don't feel that way. But unfortunately, the environment is so bad and so stressful that they too feel that way. The VPs, the senior VPs, the EVPs in the big organization feel that way too. So it literally goes from the bottom literally to all the way to the top in the organization. And what we know is that people who are chronically stressed, they get sick much more often, and they take much more sick time than often. And there are actually statistics that when you take many more sick days and you are less engaged in the organization, that it costs the organization a great deal of money, and the bottom line in the organization is impacted. So when we look at what's happening in the field of adaptive leadership, there's a huge amount of literature. I mean, this has really been going on for a long time. People like Ron Heifetz, if anybody's interested, or has been talking about adaptive leadership for about 20 years. Decoding AQ, which is adaptability intelligence by Ross Thornley, and actually he gives a certification course on adaptability, talking about how organizations need to be ready and have a kind of a readiness quotient around adaptability, and now talks about coaching for adaptive leadership. And actually, Marsha Reynolds now begins to talk about how do we create resilience, which is one of the characteristics of adaptive leaders, and how do we do that? And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So if we look at adaptive leadership, what are some of the um, kind of the secrets of the challenge of the myth of work life. And someone had asked that. And so what we know is that recently on adaptive leadership, what we know that very often we think about leaders kind of reacting to change, but that's maybe a little better, is that adaptive leaders really actively shape the future, which is different. So what we see is that resilience, when we talk about resilience, is about bouncing back. Leadership, adaptive leadership, you don't only bounce back, but you add something to that and you make the future different than what it was before. That's the difference between adaptive leadership and, let's say, resilience, or some of the other characteristics of leadership. And what we're trying to do is take that kind of characteristic and transpose that into work life. So instead of thinking about balance and kumbaya or harmony, which is really difficult to achieve, think of a seesaw. Okay, so a seesaw going up and down, you have two people, and two people rarely are of equal weight. And think of yourselves as a child if you were on a seesaw. I may be dating myself with that concept. I haven't seen a seesaw at a playground recently, actually. So it's hard to get that kind of balance. And when I say that that kind of concept of balance keeps people stuck, because balance kind of refers to, I have mine, you have yours, and we achieve balance. Well, it's not quite like that. It's more like it changes, it's dynamic. So what I'm challenging both men and women to do is change the status quo in your life and in your organization. So don't accept what is. If there are work-life benefits in your organization, many women or men don't take them because you're afraid you're going to feel weak. Take them. My granddaughter recently had triplets, and she was working for one of the big four as an accountant. And she didn't want it. She only wanted to take, her like work family leave, and that's it. And my daughter and I were really advocating, what else can you have triplets, for heaven's sakes? What else can you take? And when she researched it, she was really able to take 9 months of paid leave with some sort of benefits that were amazing. And she needed it. Let me tell you, she really needed it with those 3 amazing, delicious boys. But the culture basically says that if you're different and you don't sort of fit, because most people only have one, then, maybe you shouldn't take what's coming to you or the benefits that are actually on the books, because then you may be overstepping the bounds. And what's going to happen if you're not there in 9 months? And so what they did for her, she went back slowly. And actually, the research shows that women who go back slowly to work, rather than, okay, I took my 12 weeks and now I go back full time, do a whole lot better when they go back slowly than when they suddenly go back full time. So challenge the status quo in your own life to be the change that you want to see. So if your work life isn't working for you as an individual or with your partner, then figure out what it is that you really want, and then go and change it. And sometimes when I'm coaching clients And they start saying to me, you know, it's really horrible at work. And basically what we do is talk about not being trapped and think about sometimes leaving. And that triggers, okay, how am I going to then change what it is I have now or figure out how I'm going to leave? So if you stop thinking about balance as static and you shift your mind from how am I reacting to it to being proactive and adaptive, you start reframing yourself from overwhelm to opportunity. And when you do that, then the brain, which is really interesting, this is the neuroscience part of it, then the brain ends up not being panicked because you shift yourself to learning about what you can do differently is a different part of the brain than the overwhelmed part of the brain. And so you end up being a little bit less stressed out. Now, as you see, I can talk about this forever, and that's probably not a good idea because we're a little bit limited in time. So I'm happy to link with you on LinkedIn, or you will have my email at the end and answer all of your questions. And I know there are many, and I'm delighted to answer them for you. Research indicates that adaptive leaders, when they let go of perfection, and by the way, this is a lot of the coaching that I do with executives who tend to want to be perfect because they tend to be very analytical types who want everything, scientists, technologists, and some very smart, high achieving women who got where they got to because they did everything just so. And they want others to be that way. But that's not going to get you where you want to go, because the higher up you go, the less possible it is to be perfect. And you got to let go. Perfection is the enemy of the good. So instead of being perfect, adaptive leaders know what they measure instead is progress. And they help their people to measure progress and learning and iterative improvement instead of perfection. And the same thing is true in work life. Very often we go after being superwoman. I used to do that, and I used to kill myself. I used to take a rag and clean my house at 5:30 in the morning because I thought that I had to have a clean house before I went to work. Let me tell you, I let go of that 20 years ago. Because it hinders your capacity to be adaptive. Now I sleep an hour more, and let me tell you, that makes a big difference. So letting go of perfection. Now, what do we do? How can you apply that? Remember, let your brain know that perfection is not going to give you the recognition you want from perfection. Okay? It's not going to give you the fulfillment you want. Behind perfection, and I know this from my own experience, is the fear that you're going to fail, is the fear that you're not going to be good enough, that your research is not going to be good enough, that your presentation is not going to be good enough, and it's going to be too long. And I just lucked out because the person before me didn't show up. So I'm speaking earlier and a little bit longer. So shift your mind from perfection to progress. We are making and learning and doing together. And make sure, and this is very important for women and for men who are perfectionists, that we don't prioritize ourselves. We prioritize everybody else, that you must prioritize yourself and take care of yourself as well. Secret 3, align your values. Adaptive leaders tend to be leaders who lead with their values, because the research teaches us that for adaptive leaders who are aligned with their value and stay true to their experience, their organizations are aligned with values, create trust. And guess what? When you apply that to an adaptive work life and you are in sync with your own values, or you and your partner are in sync with your own values, or you and your organization are in sync with your own values, then you're value driven, then guess what? Then you have trust in that organization. And unfortunately, what's happening today is our own values are not in sync with our leadership. It's not in sync with, for many of us, in places that we work. And that's where many of us are having a problem. So what do? How do we apply this? Well, when we know that we're in sync with our values, our stress kind of decreases and our decision making goes up. So what are we supposed to do? Because our values are like a compass. Our North Star tells us how do we proceed in this kind of way. So if your values are not aligned where you're working or in your life with your partner or with yourself, find that alignment and you're going to see that your stress decreases. Sometimes when I have clients, they don't realize that what's really stressful for them is not the work. No one dies of hard work. Where the crisis really often is, because our values don't match. The stress comes from because this is not where my values are. I believe in work-life balance, and you're working me to the bone. And I know you're going to fire me if I don't come in on a Saturday. And because I have to come in on a Saturday, I know that my family and my husband are suffering. But I'm coming in because I know you'll fire me. And I actually had a client who once told me, the high-tech client, and that he had to fire a single mom over a single young guy, where the single mom was more competent than this young single guy. But she couldn't come in on Saturdays because she had no one to watch her children. And he literally went in and begged his boss that he didn't want to fire her because he thought it was ridiculous and she was so much more competent. But she really couldn't come in. And the boss said, nope, he can come in and we need people to come in on Saturdays to finish it, and that's it. And it ate him up. And so eventually, little things like that eat at you. And when your values aren't aligned, that's very often when people also, you don't keep people, and people tend to leave. So when your values and your personal values don't match, then it's time to leave. For other people, success is their personal value. And they're like, well, that's the rules. And it doesn't bother them one bit. So you need to know where your values are. So moving on to secret 4, which I love actually. I like all of them, but this is one of my favorites, and that is cultivating a growth mindset. And many of you may know this. There's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. The fixed mindset is, well, if it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it. Don't fix it. Why fix it? And I have lots of clients say to me, well, Mindy, why do I have to change? This worked for me before. And I say to them, okay, it worked for you before. How are you doing now with it? How's it working for you now? And I scratch their heads, well, not so well. I said, that's the point. If it's working for you now, then fine. But you're here because it's not working for you. And in today's world, you can't do what you did before. What got you here is not going to get you there, as Marshall Goldsmith always says. So what adaptive leaders do is they're constantly refining their skills. They're constantly looking at new perspectives. They have a growth mindset. So for them, challenges are really just opportunities for growth. The same thing with an adaptive work life. If you have challenges and problems, and that was what was a changing kind of moment for my husband and myself. And we said, this is not working for us. We need to think totally differently about how we're going to do this. And because we did that, our own lives became much better. We were only married then like for 8 years, and I had twins at the time. They're adorable, and they themselves now have married kids. So we managed, but it wasn't easy, but we had a choice. And some researchers are saying that work life is really not about balance, but it's about the choices you make about how you want to really live with yourself, with your partner, and what you're willing to accept at work. Because in the end, that's what it comes down to. If success at all costs is your choice, then there are consequences for that. And in life, all our choices have different consequences. So if you want to kind of apply that, what do? You consider 360 perspectives. What I tell my clients is, okay, can you see what's in front of you? Yes, Mindy. Can you see on the side? Uh-huh. Can you see to the left? Uh-huh. Well, can you see the back of your head? No, except for your mother, because she has eyes in the back of her head. But you don't. You have to turn around to see what's in the back of your head. So that's your blind spot in some ways. So recognize, to see a prism of solutions, reframe. And how many of us have bosses who always are, it's me, my way or the highway. How many times have you heard that phrase? Or if they don't say it, their tone of voice or body approach says that. So instead of, I'm right and you're wrong, think about new ways that you can approach all problems. So secret 5 is embrace unlearning and continuous learning. So with unlearning, we got to make space in our brain. There's all sorts of stuff. We used to think the world was flat. Well, guess what? It's not flat. But it took a long time. And some people, went to got killed because they thought that the world was really round. So adaptive leaders are constantly looking forward and making room in their brain for new learning. Same thing with an adaptive work life. What worked for me and my husband when the kids were young was very different than when the kids were older. And now that we have grandchildren, I thought that I'd be a free person, a free bird to do things. And I'm like, my house is like the Holiday Inn with the kids coming and going. And I'm not as free as I thought I would be, but it's very delicious and yummy. So I would never say no. But it's a different dynamic. So understand that things are constantly changing. What can you apply? Remember that we all have biases, and we got to unlearn the biases, and especially in this day and age. Stay curious, always have new insights. And I think I learned more from my great-grandchildren than I ever could have imagined. And oops, I guess that sort of dates me, but remember, I was married at 5. So next, secret 6, communicate often and listen actively. Now, I should have put listen actively first and then communicate, because I always say to my clients, you got two ears, two eyes, two ears, but you only got one mouth. So mostly listen and listen deeply. Listen as if you were two people under one umbrella. Seek to understand, as Covey says, before being understood. So adaptive work-life strategies, same kind of thing. Don't listen to yourself like, oh yeah, this is really what I want. Listen to not the position, listen to what you truly want and your needs. So applying this assumption is to check your assumptions always, because it's often in our assumptions that we get things wrong, and let go of what I call pathological certainty. And that is, you know that you're right and you have no part in this problem. It's all their fault. Think about it carefully. You may have a piece of it as well. And most importantly, learn to say no and stick with it. Secret 7, strengthen emotional regulation, empathy, and resilience. This is your emotional intelligence, because adaptive leaders have a lot of it. And if you can strengthen that and have that in your adaptive work life, those strategies will come easily to you. So look for opportunities to practice mindfulness techniques, breathing, practice where you're going to get emotionally triggered. And a thought to leave with you, there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's all life. The balance has to be within you. So I welcome you to take a photo of this. You will get a free infographic of the 7 secrets. And I hope that you can.
Yes, Dr. Mindy, and that was really a great talk, Dr. Mindy. And
yes,
yeah, we are out of time, so we have shared this file in our resources, so our audience can easily download. Hello.
yes,
Yes, and we have got some questions from our audience, so we will post it to your email.
yes.
Yeah.
So post the email, post the infographic, and let me see if I can put that. I'm happy to answer all of your questions by email, and I guess it's a good thing I had that extra time.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you so much for your valuable time. And be on the backstage, and please join the next session.
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.